Hey, this is Brian with ActiveMelody.com. And this week's guitar lesson, we're going to be in 3/4 time. We're going to be taking a look at a Western swing style lead that's slow and melodic, and we'll be playing the chord changes. So I'll be talking you through the whole thing through this lesson. I'll show you how to play everything note for note, but then I'll explain where all those notes come from so that you can start to use this stuff when you improvise. So I've got this lesson split into two parts. In this video, we'll take a look at the first half. If you'd like to watch the second half and download the tablature and download the MP3 jam track so that you can practice filling in all those lead parts, go to ActiveMelody.com, go to the lessons page, and do a search for EP229. Alright, so this song is a waltz, which means it's in 3/4 time. So that means there's 3 beats in each measure. So if we were counting this out, you'd count 1, 2, 3, 2, 2, 3. And if you listen to that rhythm guitar track, that's what I'm playing. I'm playing that rhythm. 1, 2, 3, 2, 2. They're very boring. It's actually a very boring rhythm track on its own. What gives it the color, what gives it the melody, is this lead that we're going to learn. And we're learning how to play chord changes. How do you change the scale to match the chord and give it a more interesting sounding lead, more melodic sounding lead, than if you were to just stay in the scale of the song. So that's the two paths you can take when you're improvising. Or at least that's how I think of it, just to make it simple. I could either, the song would be in the key of C, so I could either just play C minor pentatonic scale and just hang out in that scale. It's going to sound very bluesy, but I could do that even though the chords are changing through all these different chord changes. I could just stay in the one scale through the whole song, or the C major pentatonic. Or I could choose the path of changing the scale to match the chord each time, and that's going to give it a much more advanced and melodic sound. So that's what we're going to be focusing on, and it's not that difficult because I'm going to tie everything back to chord shapes rather that you already know, and that's going to make it easy. Okay, so let me first start off by playing the first little part of the melody, and then I'm going to boil that down and show you the essential notes out of that. So here's the first part of the lead that we're going to learn. Okay, now all that's played over C. That's all the rhythm's doing. Now, it may have sounded maybe complicated. There's a lot of embellishments going on, but if you were to sift through this and get just the essential part, the essential melody out of this, it sounds like this. That's it. All that was the C major scale. I'm just walking it backwards. So listen to that now. I'm going to play it again. I want you to hear those notes in that. There's one. There's one. And there's one. I'm just walking it down. So I'm just pointing that out because that's kind of the root of the melody. That's kind of what we're dancing around as we play all these other notes. So let's take a look at how to play this. So I'm thinking of this chord shape. So I mentioned the song is in the key of C, so I'm thinking of a C chord that looks like this. So that first note that I played is this note, 3rd fret, 5th string, which is the bottom note in that chord. And then I play this. So look at this. All this is, again, it's just hitting the notes in this chord shape. So we're going to play the 3rd fret, 5th string, then I'm going to come up to the 5th fret on the 5th string and slide immediately up to the 7th fret like this. And then bar the first 4 strings on the 5th fret and play string 4 and then string 3. So it sounds like this. And then I add this note, which would be the 7th fret, 3rd string. So let's back up from the beginning. And then I come to this position, which is the 4th fret, 3rd string. So again, make sure you pay attention to how all these notes that we're learning here tie back to this chord shape. So that if you were playing this in another position, let's say you're playing it in D, you could easily transpose this and play this in any key. That means you can start stealing these licks and using them in your own playing. That's really the goal of this lesson. So, alright, so let's back it up from the beginning. Now from here I'm going to play. That's a little hammer-on pull-off that happens between the 5th and the 4th fret. So that's on the 3rd string. I keep my index finger down on the 4th fret 3rd string, but then I put my middle finger down on the 5th fret 3rd string, and then do this. So play it, then do a hammer on, pull off, and then I do another hammer on to the 5th fret 4th string. It's pretty easy to do. And then from here, I'm going to slide up to the 7th fret 4th string. And then I'm going to come back to the 4th fret 3rd string to the 5th fret 3rd string. So let's back up. There's a lot of information. And then that last note is right there on the 5th fret 4th string. Now I know some of you are going to say, well, wait a minute, what about notes like that? Like, how are you connecting that note back to that chord shape? Well, what I'm doing is I'm thinking of the C major pentatonic scale pattern 1 and how that major pentatonic scale connects to this chord shape. This will be a big breakthrough for a lot of you. Maybe you know this, but if you look at this chord shape and look at where your pinky is, you're barring these 3 strings, playing that little C triad there. Well, look at your major pentatonic scale pattern 1. Look at all those notes live within that pattern 1. So that's just, I visualize that major pentatonic scale just butting up against this chord. So that means I can slide from the chord embellishments and come right into the scale. And it makes it easy because I have all these options that are right here beside this chord shape. All this major scale stuff that I can do right there. So let's take it back from the beginning. Now I'm in major pentatonic scale pattern 1. Okay, and then the next thing I played, so look at that. So that's just that triad that I just showed you. 4, 3, 2. Those are the string numbers, barring there on the 5th fret. And then I come use my middle finger here on the 6th fret, 2nd string, and I do a full bend. Now all this note is in the major scale. So you have your major pentatonic scale, and you've got this note which is an extra note. You remember those 2 extra notes outside of the pentatonic, penta meaning 5, to get you to the major scale. So this is one of those notes. So just always remember that if you're playing in a major pentatonic scale, you've got this note which you can bend as well. And it gives you a nice little color to your major pentatonic. It gets you a little more advanced. It gets you into the major scale. So we have, there's a bend and release, and then I went, and for this, I'm in my mind, I'm back in that major scale, but I'm on 5th fret, 2nd string, do a hammer-on pull-off, and do another hammer-on with my ring finger to the 7th fret, 3rd string, and then play the 5th fret, 3rd string. So all together we have, okay, so from the bend, now watch this. Isn't that nice? That's really pretty, and it's really easy to do, easy to find. So again, in my mind, I'm in major pentatonic scale, and I'm sliding up to this little position, which is going between the major pentatonic scale pattern 1 and pattern 2. I'm actually sliding into pattern 2 there. So I've got my ring finger on the 9th fret 3rd string, and I've got my middle finger on the 8th fret 2nd string. And I'm playing those 2 notes, and watch this. And you just slide them down 2 frets. 1 and 2. Now, what did I just do there? If you think about it, well, at that point the song switched to a G. We went to the 5 chord, right? And so remember, we're now switching gears. Every time there's a chord change, we're trying to match that chord with the scale that we're playing. So when I went from here to here, think about what this is in reference to a G chord. So if you've got a G chord here, you've got that minor pentatonic scale pattern 2 right here. So it gives a much more bluesy sound over that G chord. And that's all that was. Now what you're really doing is you're just pulling out the 7th note, which is that note. Like if you're playing a G7 chord, you're really hitting on that note. And it just so happens that it's easy to switch from that major pentatonic scale pattern 2 to the minor pentatonic scale pattern 2 for the next chord, if you're going from the 1 to the 5 chord. Now that may sound like some of your heads will be spinning. You think, how would you ever do that if you're improvising? Well, you just remember this stuff. You'll hear it in your head. You're building a vocabulary as you do this over time. So you'll know how to walk that down just instinctively. All right, let's take it back from the beginning. Now from here I went and played that little part. That's just kind of reiterating that seventh sound. So you're landing on that note. It's the same note. It's just an octave lower. It's that seventh. It gives it that bluesy sound. So when I played that lick, all I was doing was thinking of this chord shape. Look at these first three notes. They're just the notes right out of the major bar chord there. 2, 3, and 4 string numbers. So, but instead of making the bar chord, I just played the notes. So it's 3rd fret 2nd string, 4th fret 3rd string, 5th fret 4th string. And then that last note there is the 3rd fret 4th string. And I know that note, in reference to a G chord, or in reference to this chord shape rather, is a 7th, which will give it a bluesy sound. So let's say we were doing it over an A. You do. Hear how bluesy it sounds? Okay, let's take it from. Alright, so the song hangs out on the G chord, so what we play on top of that is this nice little walk down. Let me show you how to do that. And this is something, this will be, if you learn nothing else in this, remember this, because you'll use this all the time. It's very versatile. It works in blues, country, rock, everything. Okay, so here's how I played that. I just did the opposite of what I did before. So remember we went, now we're going to walk back. So we're going to start here on the 5th fret 4th string, 4th fret 3rd string, 3rd fret 2nd string. And then I did this. Now this is something that I use all the time, so those of you that follow my videos will have heard me preach on this one a lot. But if I'm thinking of this bar chord shape, I have these two fingers on this fret, right? Well, I can skip this fret and come to this fret and play a D chord shape, not a D chord, but a D chord shape, like a D chord down here. And I'm now playing a different voicing of whatever chord I was here. And there's so much you can do with that. You can get a major chord, you can get a 7th chord, and you can also just play a harmonized 6, which is what I'm doing here. So I'm just playing the 3rd and the 1st string, and that's on the 7th fret. But I just pointed that out because I want you to know where this is coming from, so that you can tie it back to this chord shape. So if I threw you a curveball and said, do this over A, you would know exactly where that is and how to do it. So, alright, so, and I'm using hybrid picking for that. I'm picking on the 3rd string and plucking with my ring finger on the 1st string. And then I walked it down. So that's the first two. Now I could have kept walking on those same 2 strings, like that. But instead I wanted to give it a little more of a jazzy feel. And also show you how to do this. Now, what I did there was I switched from a G6 chord to a G9 chord. That's all that is. So I just went from this harmonized 6th to playing a full chord. Now, this chord is so important because you can use it in blues, and you can even solo with it by picking notes out of it. But let me show you how to play it. I've got these 3 fingers, and they're making the D7 chord shape. And what I mean by that is, if you know how to make a D7 in first position, if you were to make that same chord shape here, where your pinky and your ring finger are on the 5th fret, strings 2 and 4, your middle finger is now on the 4th fret 3rd string, and then you put your index finger down on the 3rd fret 1st string. That's a G6 chord. But remember where this chord shape is in reference to your chord. So picture your major chord, or your major bar chord, and look at that, you got a 6th chord that lives right in there. Another easy way to do this is to take your bar chord and just take your pinky off and put it on the 2nd string there. That's playing the same thing, but I'm just pointing that out. So, all right, so let's see, we have this walk down from there, then we go into the G6, and then watch this. If you take this chord shape down, you're now playing a G9. So now you know how to make a 6 chord and a 9 chord off of this major chord shape. So if you were playing something in A, you'd have your A6 and your A9. So just remember that when you're playing a slow blues and it's your time to play rhythm, you've got... And you can use that over every chord change. It sounds really cool. Or pick the notes out of it. But let me go ahead and take it all the way back from the beginning, and we'll play us all the way up to where we're at. So we'll start from that C chord. So here we go, from the 1 chord. Okay, now there's one other little part that I want to work into this video, which is this. To get us back to the 1 chord. So what we're doing is we're getting out of the 5 chord and going back to the 1 chord. And this little chord thing here, what I'm playing there is an F major 7 flat 5, if you want to be real technical. But don't get too caught up in that. It's more important that you know how to get to it, and what this is in reference to going from the 5 chord to the 1 chord. So you can use this in blues, you can use it in anything. It sounds kind of jazzy, but it's very versatile. So just remember, if you're ever playing something and you want to and you're going from the 5 chord to the 1 chord, you can use this, and you can pick the notes out of it, you can strum it, you can do whatever you want with it. But let me show you how to play it, and then I'll show you how to play it in other keys too. Alright, so the easy way to think about playing this is from this G9 chord that we just played, is leave your middle finger and your ring finger down, but take your other 2 fingers off. So what you've got is you've got those 2 fingers, but then you've got the open 1 and 2 string. And the way that I played this was 4, 3, 1 and 2 at the same time. So it goes... So that's your F major 7 flat 5. Now if I take this, keep my ring finger down and just put my index finger down on the 1st fret, 3rd string, you can hear how that one note went down. Everything else stayed the same. That would be an F diminished with an add 7 in there if you want to get super technical. But just remember the change and how you apply it to your chord shape, and that's how you'll be able to actually use this stuff. So there's the first one. There's the second one, and then look, it resolves really nicely on the C chord. And that's getting us from the 5 chord back to the 1 chord. So just remember that and where that is in relation to the 5 chord. Now let's say the 5 chord was an A, so we were playing this in the key of D. We're trying to resolve on the 1 chord, which is a D. But from the A, you would just take that same shape and then you can resolve on the 1. You can see all I'm doing is I'm just using my index finger here to create what would be the nut here. I'm just sliding it up. So you can use this in any key. It's a great little resolve to get you back from the 5 to the 1 chord. Alright, so let me back up now and go all the way back to the beginning and play through everything slowly. That gives you all the context for at least part 1, and then I'll see you in part 2 for the second half. And if you aren't a premium member, check it out because it's a great deal. And you know, I've got jam tracks, I've got all the tablature, and I've got the entire archives, over 6 years worth of in-depth lessons like this. So here we go from the beginning of the C chord.